Oh, wow.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this episode of Core Unit Tools. I'm Retro, contributor with the Sustainable Ecosystem Scaling Core Unit, and today we're joined by Radicle. They are, for lack of a better phrase, decentralized GitHub, and are here to share how their toolset can further progress the decentralization of core units at MakerDAO. We'll hand it over to the Radicle team. Please take it away.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm Nasa. I'm kind of working on the growth side of Radicle. Abby's also joined us, who's heading up community. Feel free to jump in anytime, Abby, if I get something wrong or you want to add something. And so let me jump into it. So I'm going to assume that everyone's coming to this thing a little cold, although, I mean, who doesn't know about Radicle already, right? But so what Radicle is at its core is kind of this peer-to-peer code collaboration network and stack, which means that, you know, it's in similar way to the way GitHub built kind of code collaboration tooling around the Git protocol. Radicle's built kind of a peer-to-peer protocol that kind of gossips the collaboration stuff kind of between pairs. And it's kind of local first, secure by design. It's you know, and we're exploring a bunch of other things around kind of sustainability of funding of open source, and also of course what we're all pursuing together is kind of entering the whole vendor lock-in stuff. So the architecture, you know, as I mentioned, is, you know, the foundation is this kind of Radicle Link, which is the peer-to-peer protocol, and on top of that we've built a number of kind of smart contracts, one being around Radicle orgs, which allows projects to anchor and repositories, and then also kind of govern and own repositories as a community together. And we've got a global namespace, and we're also now building kind of funding features to then allow that DAO or develop a DAO to kind of you know, govern and fund different things as they coordinate development. And then, oh, there we go. Someone jumped in. Jack, welcome, Jack. So, and then on top of these kind of open protocols, we built open source kind of interfaces, Radicle Upstream being the desktop one. And then there's a web client and also a CLI interface. I want to actually check something. Give me a second. Sorry. Yep, cool. Right, so then, you know, based on the architecture, I'll kind of run you through kind of some of the stuff we've got already. There's the desktop client, which we've got up and running, which allows you to you know, kind of add repositories to a monorepo, which as I mentioned is kind of gossip between the pairs, and so you can kind of see that up and running. So you can, you know, source browsing and all those features. You can see commits and you can see who's contributing to it. That's kind of my individual profile, and then there's orgs, as I mentioned, which right now we're actually kind of polishing our kind of replication stuff. So it's not quite showing for the org nodes, but yeah, this will allow you to access repositories as an org, the same way this is showing as a profile. I'm currently in 2 orgs, and we've just actually, the team's just added the org discovery as well, which is pretty cool. We've got a number of teams that have kind of joined and set up already. And yeah, so the org is actually, you know, you connect your wallet and you're able to create and then manage it as a signer on either a multi-sig or a DAO contract. And then this shows how you can connect kind of an org node that then is able to replicate and be an always-on node for your organization as part of that kind of, I guess, kind of replication and sharing of that data. And then we've got the web client, which is kind of, again, showing the same thing, but it's got a web interface over it. So you can, grab a URL and just send it to someone for them to be able to view it. I decided to click on the one that's not working, which is always good. But the rest are kind of replicating and showing, which is great. This is starting to get pretty stable. Right, so that's kind of the peer-to-peer code distribution side, and the benefits of that, kind of as Juan kind of laid out in his quite great kind of intro to what Radicle is in the invite. It's free forever. It's completely open source. It's available anywhere. There's intrinsic spam and content moderation, and then there's also we've kind of been using these Ethereum features to tackle the global namespace and discoverability challenges. And as I mentioned, the graph has started using it for protocol governance, and so has synthetics, and yeah, I'm kind of in the process of onboarding a bunch of the basically top projects. Now, kind of, once you've kind of got the code distribution side of it, as I mentioned, it's very much about building the collaboration around that. We're currently working on kind of adding collaboration features via issues, and kind of we already have patches built. We're now building collaboration features to allow for things like code review, and then also building out more of the profiles. I'll show you here. So this is how issues will look, and I guess similar to what you see on GitHub, but the main difference being that we're using things like auto merge docs and CRDTs to kind of share that data around, rather than I guess storing it and receiving it from a central server. Now, this is kind of the profile stuff, as I mentioned. So this is going to get really built out a lot more, and I actually just pulled the latest version of Upstream, and I was pretty happy with it. It's pretty much there. It's getting there. I just thought I'd have to show it as an image, but the team is moving fast, which is great. And then kind of once you kind of have this foundation, which is we started by taking on these challenges of peer-to-peer distribution and removing the dependency on the centralized services. And now, what we've been seeing with teams is the way that the initial kind of powerful use cases around, DAOs using it to support the dev ecosystems and become kind of DAO tooling for developers. We're kind of we're very much, playing on that meme dev DAO, which we think is going to become quite dominant. And so what that means, I guess, in practice is a number of features for projects to onboard. In the report you guys put out, you mentioned how onboarding and retention are the kind of the big challenges, and there's a number of lenses to that. And this is kind of what we're very much thinking about and building around right now, is how do you onboard, what is different about Web3 developer onboarding, and how do you welcome, Robert. You missed all the good stuff, but yeah, so it's so how do you kind of onboard, and then how do you retain, and the projects we've been speaking to have been kind of talking about the challenges of that, and how there's the developer marketing side of it, both bounties and hackathons, but kind of for meaningful ongoing contribution in these kind of new forms of organizations, it's very much about kind of being in the trenches and having the community support one another, both with the development side, but also then the funding support that we've all seen, and we think that it's quite important for this funding support to be within the developer's workflow. It's what we've taken inspiration for things like Falcon Grants program and Web3 Foundations grant program, and so we're making it so these orgs become kind of the face of kind of developer organizations, and are being built by DAOs. And so this is an example org page, which this is what's currently being built out. And the idea is very much, when a developer comes to an org, they should be able to understand what work's being done, who's working on it, what kind of funding is being put behind the developer DAO by an org, and then also who's contributing to it and how they can contribute. And so this page is very much about onboarding developers as they land within a kind of, I guess, dev DAO. And dev DAOs, it's an interesting one because, excuse me, I need some of Juan's drink. So the org, there's kind of a project DAO, which is kind of an organization, which it seems like the kind of the pattern that's being developed is that there'll be many DAOs kind of within an organization that kind of are loosely connected and collaborate in different ways. And so I don't know what that sound was. And so I guess whether that's, there's funding. Speaking to Uma Protocol, who's just setting up, they've got a community team of superhumans, is how they've labeled them, and they're putting $1 million in funding behind them. And now they're trying to, they've got a treasury that they can then hire contributors with, and they kind of planning to use these tools to do the onboarding and kind of actual put out the work. And so, this is kind of how they onboard. They want to discover contribution opportunities. So whether that's a grant application they want to put in, whether they want to join as a contributor and have streamed funds for taking on a particular role, or whether they want to take on funded issues that are in the projects of the org, they can kind of discover it here, and then they can get more details on an opportunity and submit proposals. And then there's a review. The reviewers on the DAO multi-sig can kind of review and approve those that they think fit the objectives. And this, Andrew, I guess. Welcome, Andrew. Right, and then I've already shown the screen. We're building out issues, but I guess what's really cool is the fact that you're going to be able to have funded issues, which means that whether it's a single DAO or multiple DAOs putting some funds behind getting an issue complete, we can definitely see projects funding their own issues, but also if it's a project, maybe an open source project that other projects are relying on, maybe a number of them put funds behind an issue to try and get it done. And I guess the beauty of it being that it all stays within the workflow rather than taking them off the platform. I think one of the examples that I really liked. So, as I said, one of the things that we've taken inspiration from is things like the Falcon Grants program. And, this is a comment that's copied from there, which is, the reason why they've done it in that workflow is because so developers who are making proposals, can get kind of guidance and feedback and reviews from developers who are actually within their workflow. It allows them to actually contribute to that discussion before funding is given. And we thought it's kind of very, disconnected and broken that once you is approved, suddenly all of this admin is created and the workflow goes off of it. And I guess this is the entire point of Web3 is that it should, we should have internet money and it should be within the workflow. And so our aim is very much to kind of automate that component. And then finally, I guess this is the page that I'm trying to use to really paint the picture of what's possible with this thing is this idea of this, and this is again the org page which I showed before, but the idea being that you may have repositories kind of held in different organizations, whether that's a GitHub org or a Radicle org, but the idea of there being a dev DAO that brings together all of the repositories and the contributors from across the community into one hub, and people can see kind of what's being done, projects that have been funded, can sit here, and you can see kind of who contributed to that. I think it kind of really starts bringing that community together, and as kind of mentioned in your report, you know, giving that community support that that actually allows people to kind of, I guess, continue to contribute and actually feel like they can do some good work. All right, I think that's that kind of. Oh, actually, I think I still got some slides for you. So fast-growing ecosystem. That's always a valuable slide. We've got a lot of projects onboarding. We're actually working towards the launch, which is aimed for January, and I'm aiming for about 50 of the top projects to be onboarded and set up, so we can kind of go out and do a big co-marketing push to kind of engage and onboard developers to those projects that have partnered with us. And that's kind of the timeline, as I've said. And I've clearly gone crazy with the GIFs. Abby mocks it, but also I think secretly enjoys it. And then, yeah, so, you know, if that kind of connects with the kind of things you guys are thinking and it fits with you, then yeah, I think the next steps are setting up a Radicle org, sharing kind of the contributor positions and opportunities that you guys are thinking of, or you already either have out there or that you think would fit well with these workflows. And I can kind of and we can kind of do the work to get you guys going up and running. I'm now looking at all of the comments in chat, but cool. That's all of it basically, I think. There's a QR code as well if you want to join Discord. But that's all of it. Any questions? Any applause? Anyone wants to clap? It's welcome.
Yes.
We'll give you a soft round of applause for that. No, it was a great introductory overview. I'll kick off questions. One of the things that was provided in the forum post announcing this call was the ability to use multi-sig wallets in order to manage repos. Could you go into that a little bit? Multi-sigs is something that we use pretty heavily here at MakerDAO, and I think that's an interesting application of it.
Yep. So if you actually want to create an org, you can click on multi-signer and it creates a multi-sig for you. You can also connect, use an existing multi-sig, add it to that list, and well, I think you can input it in this thing, although that it should really be here. But you can. Oh, did someone come in? Admit. There we go. Better late than never, I guess. But that's it. Good. So welcome to whoever joined. But yeah, so you can add the kind of address for a multi-sig, and also, you know, I think DXDAO has a custom DAO contract that they're using to govern their org. And so yeah, I mean, it's a Gnosis safe that people are that's the default that's created, and you can add as many signatories, and then in Gnosis define you know, the kind of required signatures for quorum to make a transaction.
So maybe just to add a little bit of context here, because I realize that maybe we didn't talk a lot about Radicle Works, but I think that the feature with Radicle that ties multi-sigs to code collaboration is Radicle Works. So Radicle Orgs are basically like on-chain entities that can be governed by an external address or a multi-sig. And so basically what you do is you anchor canonical project state to these orgs via anchors, which are just like signed messages that can be committed via quorum through a multi-sig or through a single transaction. And so basically what it's saying is that instead of you know, relying on a single account or a single like GitHub org to maintain a canonical project state of a set of repositories, you can actually do that on-chain via Ethereum identities and via decentralized control through multi-sigs. And so right now, Radicle Works is all about kind of like maintaining canonical and global project state of repositories, but you can imagine these as a really important primitive for decentralizing access control of repositories in the future, right? Of automating interactions with repositories in the future. So we actually have a lot of really cool ideas that are in in the Gnosis Guild and Radicle ecosystems around like how can you automate merge requests, right, via Radicle Works, and how can you utilize the power of multi-sigs and the decentralized access that they provide and incorporate those into the development flows. And so right now, again, it's all about anchors members. And if you go to our Mirror page, you can actually see a really awesome tutorial that kind of runs through what Radicle orgs are, how you would start it and how you would use it as a team, starting to decentralize their collaboration infrastructure. But then you can also start visualizing how this could be used within different development teams. Does that kind of contextualize it a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. It answered my question. And as always, we encourage the audience to ask questions. So if there are any, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll give you the ability to speak. As a follow-up to that first question, what would be the easiest way for a group to get started then, to start using Radicle?
Yeah, I think as Abby said, is we've got a tutorial that kind of allows you to get set up quite easily. I'm also currently personally jumping on calls and onboarding people. So there's a number of with all these things, all the tech is kind of less than polished. A wallet fails or something like that. So I'm personally onboarding teams. So if you guys want to get set up, we can just set up an onboarding call for an hour and get that done. And we also just to be clear, we're covering gas right now as we're not on layer 2 yet. So I can kind of as we do that setup, either you guys send me a wallet after saying I set it up, or I can jump on a call and make sure we've got paid for that as you do it.
That gas part makes me have another question, but I'll come back and ask my original one first. So I'm Pros 11. I'm one of the governance facilitators. So was obviously thinking about this for our own core unit and how we might be able to use it within the org, particularly around ideas of like documentation. Like we recently just spent a bunch of time setting up a Gitbooks to kind of allow people to explore and see all the docs and things we're working on. Like, is this compatible with Gitbooks? Like, are there examples of it being used with documentation? Just kind of curious what your thoughts are there.
Well, I think it's probably right now just as compatible as Git. Well, actually, I don't know. Abby, do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, so maintaining repositories on Radicle on the peer-to-peer network is as simple as pushing to another remote. So while GitHub obviously makes it very easy to integrate with different endpoints for where you want to push those repositories, there's some work to be done, but a lot of this stuff is possible. It's more about how you want to relate it to some of the Ethereum features where things get interesting, right? So for example, like I maintain the community blog. We maintain the community blog via a Radicle org. So all posts to the Mirror platform have to be anchored on chain before published to the platform. Of course, there's a lot of trust points there. It's just a dog-fooded experiment, but that example, I think relates to that any Radicle can be used to manage any version controlled repository of any information. And it's more about how you're integrating it locally and pushing it and deploying it to different platforms like Gitbooks, or like we're thinking like deployment of apps as well. So the examples, we don't really have any examples of like how people are using it end to end with documentation, but the space definitely is there with what we have built to start experimenting with it. So also on the Mirror blog is the example of kind of how we set up the org and how we're using it with our repositories, and also kind of how we see it decentralizing in the future. And then I would also push people to our Radicle.community forum, because I think that there's actually like an open discussion around like integrating with Gitbooks or creating like a decentralized GitHub pages that could be used for deploying a documentation endpoint that relates and integrates with Radicle repositories. So I can try to find that for you.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I guess I would, I don't know if it's worth adding, but I can definitely see right now, I guess GitHub is built on open, Radicle's built on kind of open protocols and open data. And so I can very much see, either, a team being funded or other teams building on that data and actually fully integrating it into the documentation sites. So as they, because I think right now, kind of even if you look at all the custom work that Uniswap's doing around their documentation, it's kind of this disconnected experience of here's the education material, and then here's the, where all the work's being done. And so I think, I think I mentioned to one of your team members as well, about the idea of, if you guys are working on, it seems like you guys are doing a lot of good work on education and building out this tooling. If it's of interest, to kind of collab and co-fund something, we're definitely keen on doing that around integrating these two two ideas, the education and the code collaboration side.
Hey folks, it's Frank Cruz here from Flip Flop Flap Delegate. I have a question with regards to Akash. I believe that was their logo. Are you guys looking to move to open source cloud? And if so, how are you thinking about that? And I think I might have said something on Ceramic, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. And I just wanted to see if you guys are doing something for them, or are you looking to do something with them in the near future, as far as decentralizing the data that might be going on to something like the forum that we use a lot, right? It's pretty centralized. It's no secret.
Yep.
So is Discourse. So if you can just comment on that, and I apologize for missing that part of the presentation.
That's all right. Yeah, so I guess on the Ceramic thing quickly is that we've already integrated with Ceramic for identities, IDX. And so if you're using the apps, and then I think it checks ENS and it checks Ceramic to try and pull that data through. And I'm sure we're going to kind of keep exploring different integrations with Ceramic. And then with regards to Akash network, we've been working with them and looking at ways to enable kind of one-click deploy. The org nodes that I mentioned that kind of are always on nodes to replicate data for a particular organization. We kind of believe that those kind of need to be run by individual organizations rather than a single central server, of course. And so we're looking at automating and simplifying that setup. And one of the options we're looking at is Akash network. We've already done a lot of the setup to make that possible. But there's a few things left to do there. And then we've also, the third component is we've actually just had, it's probably in one of our open repos. I won't actually show my Discord because I don't know what craziness people may be messaging in there. But there's someone who just posted in our old clients. We just had someone join our team who's working on OneClick Deploy via I think a different mechanism. So yeah, and that's kind of open. So I can share that after if you're interested. But there's a few methods we're looking at for allowing for kind of one-click deploy of a node, I guess.
And with Akash as well, it's also saying, okay, when we have that one-click deploy, what does that mean for, like a decentralized GitHub pages, right? Back to Peyton, your question about how does this relate to your end collaboration experiences. And I think that a lot of these partnerships that we have going in the Radicle ecosystem are also building out different pieces of the Radicle stack with the goal of, not making it, the GitHub killer, but instead making it a very resilient stack of collaboration tooling that's decentralized and built on Ethereum that projects can take to use and empower their development workflows within their decentralized communities. So obviously, like, the Maker community is very strong, very decentralized, probably like the most decentralized. The Maker journey has been kind of a resemblance of kind of everything that's now kind of starting to kick off in the DAO space. And so there's a lot of space to start figuring out, how Radicle could support different development communities like Makers and figure out what tooling is necessary and what pieces of the stack should be built together to create, those that tooling.
Cool. And just one quick, thank you for that, providing all that information. And I'm not a developer, but from a Web 2.0 view, would you guys say you are similar to linear.app or a lot different where you're servicing more for Web 3? I mean, I guess linear is also moving into the space, but just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And thanks in advance for answering my questions. That'll be it for me.
Last time I checked up on Linear, they were issue tracking. So I think that they're definitely like a collaboration tool, but that's pretty heavily based in the social collaboration, where I think Radicle, which this is actually like a perfect echo of what I just said, Radicle is aiming to be a resilient stack for collaboration that's, based, everything on Radicle is actually built on a decentralized peer-to-peer network, right? So I think that the goal with Linear is to, and I'm not sure about their recent transition into Web3, would be very interested, but theirs was more of like, a nice, a notion or superhuman approach to software development, which I think is awesome. Whereas Radicle is trying to look at the deeper parts of the stack and figure out how we can create more resilient and decentralized infrastructure to support that type of collaboration. With the goal that people could use Linear on top of Radicle. So really, like, repositories are hosted on Radicle. It's not just another app to view and interact with your repositories, if that makes sense. But I'd be very interested to learn more if they're getting into Web3 territory, for sure.
Got it. Thanks. Thanks again.
That's interesting. I hadn't seen them.
Yeah, thank you to Peyton and Frank for those questions. I believe Raphael had a question next.
Yes, hello. This is Rafael. I'm from one of the development teams in MakerDAO. We are especially focused on front-end systems, and our team heavily relies in automation. And right now, well, we are using different services, but especially with Circle CI and Vercel for deployments. And we need also not the front end, but microservices and other things that we run. I would like to know, maybe we already talked about this, but I arrived late to the meeting, sorry. If you support integrations with those systems to automate deployments and so on.
Yeah, so at the moment we haven't started. It's very much on our roadmap, but we haven't started working on the CICD stuff. I think the way we're actually approaching this, and it's why we're starting with, rather than trying to take on all of what people use GitHub and other tools for, we're taking on a particular set of problems that are unique to Web3, and people trying to build, I guess, dev DAOs and developer ecosystems. And what we've done is we're building kind of automated mirroring tools, so that you can kind of developers can keep their I guess core workflows on GitHub as they transition over, as we kind of get more and more robust. So that's kind of step one. I think one of the things I really should say early on when I'm talking through these things, I do try, but I forget sometimes, is that we're not asking people to come over GitHub right now. It's very much this is kind of a secondary layer that kind of adds resilience, and then also allows people to start building that developer ecosystem and supporting them. And the second thing I'll say is, I guess we were speaking to Vercel yesterday, and from the CEO down, they're very much being told we've got to integrate with Web3, and they're very keen to support. So these things will be coming quite soon, but it's a large ocean that we're boiling, and so we're taking bit by bit.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, we'll be seeing more kind of like front end integrations. OneClick Deploy is making it easier to tie Radicle hosted repositories to your deployments, and the more in-depth CI/CD stuff will be really driven by some of the more resilient ethos that kind of like Radicle was built under, right? Which is like, how can we decentralize CI/CD? What does the nature of the Radicle network present for us exploring a new way to do decentralized deployment and all of that? So I think that there's a lot of, again, the development forum actually has a really good thread on this, like where people are like talking about these ideas and stuff. So there's a lot of exciting things, but like Nasser said, that we'll probably be focused more on like making it easier for people to build and deploy things and maintain things with Radicle, instead of kind of like, yeah, that's what I meant to say, sorry.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. If there are any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Going off of what you said with how Radicle's currently funding gas, what's the business model for Radicle? Is it a goal to make money, or is it how do you guys make money as a project?
Yeah,
I mean,
Radicle is sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it. I was about to just say, from my understanding is that it's not been pinned down yet, and therefore Abby can elaborate is what I was going to say.
Yeah, Radicle is a free and open source project. So Radicle aims to be the first community-led, free and open source project that's governed on the internet. So one of the big aspects of the Radicle ecosystem is its governing ecosystem. So the network in February was decentralized with the launch of the Radicle token, which gives the community opportunity to participate in the communal governance of the Radicle network. So I think success of the project is actually the continuous decentralization of the project. So I know I keep just like linking you guys forum posts, but honestly, this is, I realize where we capture most of our thought share, right? But there's a post about our as in the core team and initial contributors to the Radicle project. And setting the goal of completely decentralizing the project, obviously similar to the maker approach. And the goal is for all project development on the Radicle project to be funded via the Radicle DAO, which is currently governs the Radicle Treasury, which holds over 50% of the Radicle token supply. And so right now what's happening in the community is the activation of that Radicle governance and the deployment of the Radicle Treasury into the Radicle open source project to continue decentralizing development, empowering Radicle as an open source project. So getting more developers building on Radicle, funding more pieces of the stack, and creating the community infrastructure necessary to support the growth and the success of Radicle as in the long term as a self-sustaining, community-led and governed open source project. So it's really about kind of shifting the paradigm of what is required from a project, because the main goal for Radicle is to be resilient collaboration infrastructure for Web3. And we want to do that in a way that leaves our users and our network participants resistant to extraction of traditional Web2 models. So lots more in the forum there. You can also take a look at what's happening in our governance forum. We have a governance working group that meets every 2 weeks and is currently stewarding grants proposal forward and leaning into how can we be supporting adoption and growth through the DAO, through the deployment of the Radicle Treasury. So also like really, really exciting stuff happening there.
Very cool. I have grabbed the links that you were sharing, and we'll make sure to update the forum post with that, so anybody watching the recordings will be able to interact with the references that you've provided. If there aren't any other further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I always like to end with follow-up opportunities. So what's the best way to get a hold of you guys? I believe you mentioned that there's a Discord. Any handles or preferred methods that you would like to share for interested teams to reaching out?
Yep. I guess there's this QR code here. Then also I can share a link. Dabby, do you want to drop the Discord link in the chat?
For sure, I can do that.
Cool. So if you can, so there's a Discord. You can also add NASA Hire. Hit me up on Twitter, which sounds really kind of YouTuber-ish right there. That did not mean to be so Gen Z or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, if you can kind of jump into Discord or Twitter, and then there's the tutorial link. You guys can get set up, and then also just reach out to me, and we can set up an onboarding call, and then we're also reimbursing gas. So yeah, let me know. I don't know if that covers it. Probably need to find a better way of saying all of that. There we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to Nassar and Abby for joining from the Radicle team. Just as a quick shout out, the blog at radicle.xyz/blog was very well put together. It's a great resource to get caught up quickly with the community and ecosystem. And we'll be sure to stay in touch and stay up to date with the developments of Radicle.
Do we want to just do a final, Juan, do you want to, put out the final threat for anyone who doesn't adopt Radicle orgs?
We may have to follow up with that. Juan unfortunately had to drop, and he didn't
Oh, has he
pass
dropped out?
along the
Unfortunately.
thread,
Cool.
so
Well,
I can't be his henchman.
he said that everyone has to onboard, so just FYI if you're afraid of your one. But cool. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
And appreciate it. Have a good one.
Great,
I don't
yeah.
know, I feel like
Thank you,
I'll leave you to sign off there because I'm clearly destroying the energy as we leave.
All good, all good. We'll catch you next time then. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.